My guest in studio, he announced yesterday the suspension of the People's Assembly following the talks between President Uhuru Kenyatta and NASA leader Raila Odinga. He also said that they have impressed upon the leaders for the need for the unity process to be honest, truthful, and courageous. He is NASA's technical strategy and policy head. He is a renowned economist and a public intellectual. Dr. David Ndii now joins us in studio. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to begin this discussion by, obviously, a question I'm sure you've been asked a million times now, to get your thoughts on that handshake, the surprise press briefing, the new show of unity. I asked you when you came in here, what a busy couple of days it's been for you. You said, no, maybe it's for me. I had no idea this was going to happen. Clearly, it seems you did. How significant or how substantial was that handshake?
Very, very significant. Let me start with an anecdote. Okay? Some time ago, when we were, I think around December, Raila Odinga met some of his supporters somewhere, some of his very strong supporters. And this was around the conversation about the swearing in. And they were insisting that he must be sworn in and this is the way to go about it. And he was trying to tell them, look, this is something we have to sort of think through and manage carefully, you know, as they're pushing him very hard. And he was sort of wanted, you know, he has this sort of banter and conversations with his supporters. And I told him, you know, there's a risk that the public, the security forces, you know, could come out and they could clamp down, they could be shot dead, we don't want people to die. And they told him, listen, your job is to be sworn in. Dying is our job. So you leave the dying to us, you get sworn in. Now, why am I telling that story? There are people in this country who are willing to die for Raila Odinga. There are people in this country who are willing to die for Uhuru Kenyatta. Okay? I don't think there are people who are willing to die for any other of our politicians. You know, there are many who would like to think that they are significant, but I'll be honest with them. There may be people, you know, who are willing to kill for them if they are paid,
but not to sacrifice their lives.
Not to sacrifice their lives for them. So, I think it's time for Kenyans to stop dying for politics. Okay?
Okay.
So, that's the significance. For us to talk, okay, we have to remove that there's no way the people who have been calling for dialogue, I'm hearing people now talking about institutions, about all sorts of processes. But the fundamental...
You're talking about the other NASA core principles?
No, all sorts of people, civil society, everybody's talking about processes, why they should be involved. Elites, let me say elites. I'm hearing elites sort of jostling and looking for a place at the table. But they are not in the position that Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta are in, where you're looking at yourself as leaders and you're asking yourselves, what do you do about these people who are willing to die for you?
How do you rein them in? How do you tame them?
No, how do you have a nation?
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Ndii. You're not a politician. Can I start the discussion there?
Yeah.
And you agree. You're a man, an intellectual. On your Twitter handle, you describe yourself as a public intellectual. That means that what you say is what you mean. You don't miss words. You don't backtrack. Yesterday, in the statement you read, you said it is better to reason together than separately. And I trust that that is the truth that I'm saying. But you've said different things in the past, Dr. Ndii. For example, in March 2016, Daily Nation, you said, Kenya is a cruel marriage. It's time to talk divorce. So which Dr. David Ndii am I talking to today? Is it the Dr. David Ndii of 2016 who said that this project is not working, the Kenya project has failed, or the new one who's here with me right now saying enough is enough, things need to change? When did the transformation happen that you then come here on the studio, on that chair that you're sitting on, and speak very differently? If the old David Ndii was sitting there, he might be asking, where did the change happen? Please help us understand.
You've made huge assumptions.
Enlighten me.
And imposed a lot of things on me which are very easy to explain. Let me tell you where I start.
Okay.
By way of background. I'm going to start with our NASA manifesto. If you look at our NASA manifesto, its title, we called it A Strong Nation. Our platform, we are running on platform of building a strong nation. Okay? And if you look at the first statement on that strong nation and what its characteristics are, the first station speaks to tribalism. It speaks to tribalism, and then it speaks to every Kenyan, every community, and every Kenyan being valued and enjoying their human dignity. It talks about values. Now, as I've said, then let's look at where we are in terms of leadership, which is what I've just said. You have two presidents. You have a president in State House, okay, the president of state. I've just said you calling the state president. And we have another president out there who people call the people's president. And sometimes they call him Baba. Okay?
Okay.
They call him Baba. If you extend, they say Baba wa Taifa. Okay? So you have a president who's running the state, and you have somebody out there who people consider the father of the nation. Now, Baba wa Taifa, who represents something. And the people came out in hundreds of thousands to swear him in and call him the people's president. You can't ignore that. There's something going on in this society. Okay, what is that? Now, you need to go back to 1964. Okay? And in 1964, you have two leaders, one called Jomo Kenyatta and one called Jaramogi Oginga. They midwifed Kenya's independence. After independence, they had an ideological fallout. Jomo Kenyatta led the country on the path of what I call ethnic nationalism. Okay? Odinga stayed on the path of Kenyan nationalism. He became what we call finally the doyen of opposition politics in Kenya. He lived to again lead the process of bringing Kenyans together to usher in multi-party, to midwife the second liberation. Okay? So if you look at these two trajectories, yeah, that is our ideological polarization in Kenya. You can't wish it away. You have a nation built on ethnic nationalism and dominance of some communities over others, and a vision of a nation struggling of inclusive nation, built on human dignity and values. Now, a couple of years ago, 4 years ago, I wrote this article you talk about, and I said Kenya is a cruel marriage.
It's a cruel marriage.
It has, and I explained how it has walked this path, the political betrayals, the opportunities that we have had to heal. Okay? And if we do not heal, if you don't deal with this fundamental problem of ethnic polarization, our political problem, yeah, it is going to lead us where many African countries and many countries have gone. Civil war, state failure, ethnic conflict. And we've had bits of those. Okay? We've had bits of those. Now, and I see this if I'm going to come to where you have this.
I'm hoping you're coming to answer my question.
No.
Yes.
I'm explaining.
Building your case.
So,
go ahead.
No, it's not even building a case. It's quite clear. There's no contradictions. I have said exactly the same things. I have said, look, the fundamental, the mantra of the state, which is actually built on ethnic nationalism, is to sweep these issues under the rug. And the mantra for sweeping them under the rug is talking about focusing on development. Okay? Let's focus on development. That's what Jomo Kenyatta said in 1965. You can read it in his introduction to session paper number 10, talking about these things must end. Let's focus on development. The other day, Uhuru Kenyatta said, let's not talk about this. Politics is over. Let's focus on development. And my beef with this has been this focus on development is running away from the issues.
So what changed on Friday?
There's nothing which has changed, and that's my point.
Okay.
If you read the documents those people produced, if you read the statement we made yesterday, is speaking the same language. It is speaking the language of let us build a strong nation. We have failed very far. They make reference to the mistakes that their fathers made.
So you see no contradiction
there's
in the David Ndii
there's
that we have.
absolutely no contradiction. I have said either we debate these issues, the politics, the tribalism. Yeah? My purpose of doing this is, as an intellectual, is to frame these issues for society so that we can be able to debate them. And I have achieved that.
In the same
We have avoided debating these issues for 55 years and putting them on a table in a manner that they can be engaged. That is something which has bothered me for a very long time. Okay? So today, we have two leaders, and we are very lucky also that these are the sons of the founders, because they really symbolize
where Kenya has come from.
Where we come,
Yes.
where we've come from. We're very lucky that they can say, look, they have a meeting of minds that actually our problem is nation building.
Are you not concerned that that meeting of minds could not have happened earlier? The timing of the meeting. Why did we have to go through? And I even listed what Kenya has gone through over the last 1 year, if not longer, because you say we've been in this hole for a longer time. We've seen loss of life. We've seen destruction of property. We've seen stagnation of the economy since last year. Let's just use this particular time period. It doesn't feel like all this was sorted by a handshake. The timing of it, the newfound unity.
Handshakes are very important. It took a handshake between Raila and Kibaki to end the post-election violence. Okay? It took a handshake between Nelson Mandela and de Klerk to bring apartheid to an end. Okay? It took 60 years of ANC fighting apartheid and 27 years of Nelson Mandela in jail. It took a handshake between Yasser Arafat, Rabin, and Peres to try and bring the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. They did not succeed. Okay, but hopefully when that problem is solved, they will remember
that handshake.
And those three people won the Nobel Peace Prize. Mandela and de Klerk won the Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, so we are not going to be able to. So we're asking, why did it take so long? Why did it take South Africans 60 years to realize that racial sort of division, apartheid, is wrong? Yeah. Why did we have to go to war in 2007?
You asking me the question I asked you.
I am framing for you our political issues.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think what people don't seem to appreciate at this point, I think, and it's important, is that this handshake is not about the state reforms. All the people are talking about reforms. But they made it, if you listen to Raila, he said, we have been upgrading our hardware. And I think that language is very important. We have been upgrading our hardware all the time. But it's not working because we are not upgrading our software. So we need to have a conversation around the software. And the software is issues of values. Okay? And values reside in society. They do not reside in the state. We are divided in this society about very fundamental things. We are divided on whether...
Such as how to finance our growth.
Pardon me?
How to finance infrastructure projects.
That is completely trivial and completely irrelevant. We are divided on whether we are going to be a democracy or a dictatorship. Okay? Some people say what we need is benevolent dictatorship. Others say we need to be, they're even asking who should become a benevolent dictator like Lee Kuan Yew. So we have to stop and say, wait a minute. You cannot have in one society a dictatorship and a democracy at the same time. We are divided on right and wrong. There are people who believe stealing for your people is okay. Okay? So we have to decide. There's no society we can survive when you are divided on whether stealing is right or wrong, whether killing people is right or wrong. Okay? So we are divided on fundamental societal values. And he's saying this conversation between which these leaders have said they want to lead is not about the reforming of the constitution and tinkering with institutions. We do not have the social environment to even discuss that. Because we are talking about people who have massed their troops, who are willing to annihilate each other.
Whatever it takes.
To annihilate each other.
You sound very confident about what happened on Friday or what happened before that, or I mean the whole process. Are you in any way disappointed that you had to suspend the People's Assembly?
We set up the People's Assembly precisely for this purpose. We said we need to get out of the state structures because the state is not working. We did a new constitution. Again, we needed to get out of the hardware and go sit under a tree as communities. Okay? And discuss as communities how we are going to live together. Okay?
Okay.
That was the purpose. Those are the conversations we've been having with people around the country. And we have been having conversations under trees. If you watched our People's Assembly, we don't meet in buildings. We don't have these formal seminar type things.
Okay. I don't dispute that, although you haven't answered my question.
Which is?
Was there any disappointment in the suspension?
No,
do you have any regrets about?
We are having a process of renegotiating our nationhood, but without some of us in the room. Okay? So our question was, once we have these hard discussions, and it excludes Kikuyus and Kalenjins, okay? At what point are we going to bring them in so that we agree whether we are staying together or whether we are separating, whether we can live together or not? So if these leaders have said, okay, we don't want that conversation to take place to the exclusion of some communities, to the exclusion of some regions. So what we are saying is they have agreed with us that we need to have this conversation.
With everyone.
With everyone in the house. So I don't see why people, partly, the people who are going on about the People's Assembly have never attended one. They don't know what it's about. They haven't read the resolutions of those assemblies. It's just, again, elite conversation. What we were discussing, if you read what we are discussing with the people, and what the leaders have said they want to lead, they have said, hey, you know, ultimately when we have this, like I said, it's a conversation about values. What is the problem between Kikuyus and Luos? What is the problem between Kikuyus and Kalenjins? Is there a problem or is there not? What is the problem between the people of the coast, Nawatu Abara?
So why suspend? Why not call off? If what is happening between President Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga echoes what happened, what the People's Assembly was supposed to achieve, then
you know,
call off the People's Assembly?
No, again, I think, and I don't mean this to be flippant or rude, I think part of where you're coming from is youth. Youth need to read history. We have been through these sort of processes before. That's how we came to a new constitution. We had a people process called Fungamano, and we had a state process. We forced the state process. At some point, we decided we cannot have two processes because the people in the state finally saw our point. Because we were doing our things out there as people. They finally saw our point, and we negotiated, and we merged the two processes. We still had a lot of struggle. Yeah? At some point, the state side developed cold feet, and Moi cancelled it. That's how we ended up again with having a new constitution as the agenda for NAC. Again, it entailed politicians, handshake. So that gave us the momentum, and then we went into NAC government, and again, some of our colleagues, they backtracked. And their backtracking and our inability to do a new constitution led us to the PEV in 2007-8. So those of us who have been in this business for long, we know our history. Okay, and this nation cannot move forward, yeah, unless we deal with those political fundamentals.
And that I don't disagree with. The reason I'm pushing you on this point is because there's a school of thought that if you really honestly believed in what happened on Friday, then you would not have suspended the People's Assembly. You'd have called it off. In a sense, to show that whatever happened on Friday captures what we were trying to do as the People's Assembly. The People's Assembly is no longer...
What do you understand by suspending?
Put on hold, meaning it could be restarted if need be.
Yes.
why do you see that provision for if need?
If you read the statement at the bottom, we have said very clearly, we have a history of betrayal. We are not doing this.
What are the conditions that you're giving?
We are not doing this because we trust each other. Okay?
Okay.
We are giving each other the benefit of the doubt. We don't trust each other.
What are your conditions? You don't trust each. What are your conditions? What do you expect to see?
We have no conditions. This is not a negotiation. Okay? This is a process where two leaders have said, we are going to go out and reconcile people. Reconcile our people. So that Raila Odinga doesn't have people who are willing to die for him, and Uhuru doesn't have people who are willing to die for him. What we have is Kenyans who are going to hold Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta's feet to the fire together to leave a united nation. So this is not a political negotiation. This is a leadership initiative.
It's a leadership initiative. That's
so if it's a leadership initiative, it doesn't need conditions precedent. Well, it just needs their commitment that they will go out together. They will continue handshakes.
Okay.
Okay? Until we have created a conducive environment.
Okay. Dr. Ndii, and yes, I am trying to understand your statement yesterday. And that's where I'm stuck, because on one hand you say no conditions, it's not a negotiation, it's a leadership intent on one hand. On the other hand, in your statement yesterday, you were clear when you said to the principals that, listen, we suspend this, but we are watching you. It's almost in a sense that we are watching you.
Yeah.
We've seen this happen before. So when will enough be enough for you? When will David Ndii say, okay, it's been 6 months, it's been 1 year?
It's not David Ndii.
I'm trying to understand.
It's not David Ndii.
With the same
let me tell
thinking.
you, I am willing, I am prepared to walk away from this. I've achieved my objectives. We have told Kenyans, I wanted to put this agenda on the table. This agenda is finally on the table. We are challenging Kenyans to hold their leaders' feet to the fire. So all these people who are telling us do this or do the other, we're telling you, organize yourselves as civil society, as whoever, and hold these two leaders accountable for what they have promised. They have promised to reconcile Kenyans. We already have good hardware.
The laws are in place.
The hardware may need a bit of upgrading. The problem is the software. We have to stop a situation where people defend their thieves because they are from their community. Okay, it's us. Why do we defend our thieves?
There's something wrong with the software.
There's something wrong with the software. This is unprecedented. There's no template for it. We're saying we must have this conversation. This is the conversation. This is what Nyerere achieved for Tanzania.
In a sense, you're giving the principals almost a benefit of doubt.
Yes.
Do what you have pledged you will do.
You said, this is where we missed the road. This is where Nyerere got it right. Okay? So we have to retrace our steps. They have said they want to be the leaders whose legacy is that they retraced our steps, yeah, and fixed that problem. That's what they have said.
Okay.
So listen to them. Said, if you're willing to do that, even for them, it's very difficult. Because, as you know, they are beneficiaries in many ways of that legacy. So they have
of the
to...
issues that have plagued this nation.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's a very major sort of psychological step.
It would be unfair of me to let you go without asking you this question. What role do you want to play in this drive, or what's next for David Ndii? I watched an interview you did in December on KTN. The host asked you what next for you in the new year. You said People's Assembly. We're going to build it up. We're going to go around the country, etc. That now seems to have changed. What
we have achieved a lot of our objectives. What we're saying is that our agenda has been adopted by the leaders. Both. We have been driving it with one leader. The other one has come on board. So what do you want me to do? To push him out?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just asking you what next for you.
These are not mine. Okay? We are doing them for the country. Okay? So for me, I'll sort of provide whatever support I can. give it sort of like intellectual sort of direction. That's what I do. I don't want to do or be other things. I am who I am.
As an economist, and a renowned one at that, you have in the past not minced word when it comes to where Kenya is in terms of our economy and the strategies and the management of our economy. If, for example, Honorable Raila Odinga decides, David Ndii, can you help us with the economy? Can you advise us on where we are in regards to debt? Would you be willing to work with those on the other side whom in the past you've said you would not want to work with them? I'm painting for you scenarios that you may have
I
to
have
face.
answered that question. I'm not going to face those scenarios because I think there's an important thing which I also need to emphasize.
Go ahead.
One of the things that these leaders have told us is that this is not a state process. Okay, we are not going into government.
So what structure?
It is a private initiative. They are going to set up a private office. Okay, it's a non-state process. Okay, this is not Nusumkat state. We are not going to discuss policy. We're not going to discuss economy. Okay, so we are going to discuss how do we build a strong political foundation. Jubilee is going to stay in government, and whatever happens to them with their debts and those crises that they made their bed, they lie on it. We are not going to go and rescue them from that. We are talking about how do we create an enabling environment and reconcile the people so that the state can function.
Okay, but it's not just that. Let me read for you part of the statement, word for word. His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, His Excellency Raila Odinga will promote a common approach that helps citizens understand the role of devolution in creating the Kenyan nation and its significance to their development. They will also commit themselves to make the strongest efforts to find the right skills and attitudes from as many backgrounds and identities as possible. I'm trying to understand, find the right skills and attitudes to do what? To work somewhere, in what office? In the private entity or in state? Let me read one more. For example, they say here, for those who launch terror attacks on our people, His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta, His Excellency Raila Odinga will work with Kenyans to unite for them to take a stand against terrorists as a united people. Under what structure?
They don't need a structure.
Still under the private...
They don't need a structure. They're leaders. You know, leadership is not management. Okay, so let me finish.
Okay.
Let's talk about terrorism. Terrorism, we have, if you look at many of the people who have been identified as terrorists, they're Kenyans who are joined Al-Shabaab.
Fair enough. Okay,
if the Kenyans are being radicalized, is that a state issue or is it a societal issue?
It's a society issue.
Sure, they need to talk with those communities who are what are the grievances that are making Muslim youth in Kenya get radicalized? Okay, you need to talk to the Somali community and their issues. You need to go to the coast and their issues as leaders so that you can create the environment so that we don't have our people killing their people in the name of some political cause from somewhere else. Okay? So say if we...
Tell me about the other one. You've explained that one. Tell me about finding right skills and attitudes to build the nation. So will CVs be handed over to...
Listen, nation building is not state building. Let's be clear what a nation, difference between a nation and a state. Okay? First you have nation. Nation is society. Okay? Then the nation decides on what character of state they want and how they will be choosing government. Okay? One of the things we have decided is that we want a state which is devolved.
That's true.
Where power is exercised, whatever. That's very fundamental because it's about what are the constitutive elements of Kenya. Is Kenya constituted by individuals? Is it constituted by tribes? Is it constituted by counties? And we have been pushing the agenda that we need to go back and reconstitute Kenya based on cultural communities, or at least align the state to society. So that's what that is speaking to. It is not speaking to devolution, to delivery of services by counties.
And this, this is my honest last question to you, and this will be funded by private investors, because all these activities have costs.
No, they have stated that they will fundraise privately.
They'll fundraise
even
privately.
if they're fundraising from donors and foundations and other people, they have said that
so they're accountable to those they'll fundraise from, and if money, so that money doesn't come from the state.
There's no money from government.
Okay. Very interesting. We wait and see what the structure look like. Dr. David Ndii, many thanks indeed for finding time to be here with us today and to understand where we find ourselves as a nation.